It's live for me. Welcome to this video. I am Zoe D Speaks. If you are just finding out about me or seeing me on your timeline, then I invite you to follow me on all of my social media platforms at Zoe D Speaks. Just check it out. I speak on purity. I speak on marriage. I speak on family foundation in regards to woman mainly coming back to the heart of the father. So I have a really big heart for the things of single women as well as married women and children as well as overall family. So that is me in a nutshell. I won't really go into a whole long drawn out disclaimer or introduction of who I am. So I just invite you to come in and also just check out my channel once you finish this video. But before you finish this video, what I invite you to do, if you did not see the live that I did on what is biblical adultery, then I invite you to either watch it right after this video or make sure that you go and watch that video. You can find it on my Zoe D Speaks Facebook page, my Zoe Davis Facebook page, or my Zoe D Speaks YouTube channel. I'm also on Instagram and, of course, TikTok, and as you can see, just any social media platform, you can find me at Zoe D Speaks. You can also find me at witnesslegend.com/Zoe D Speaks, and you'll see my books there, a little bit about, what I've done over the last couple of years and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I want to go into a long spiel on that. I want to get into chomping down the support of biblical polygyny by dismantling or breaking down misinterpreted scriptures that y'all like throw at me. So y'all be like, nah, Zoe, God ain't told no man he can have multiple wives, because the Bible say, a man need to have his own wife and the wife need to have her own husband. So we're going to dismantle this Roman mindset, or this westernized cultural mindset. We're breaking down those terms. So first of all, let's get foundational. The Bible is translated either from two languages, Hebrew or Greek. That being said, every word in the scripture needs to really be studied. We do not typically know Hebrew or Greek, and a lot of times when you're just reading the Bible, you're not studying the Bible. And I had to learn this, because once I learned that, you can have two words, like in this instance, that in English are the same or would mean the same for us. In Hebrew and Greek, they are not the same. And that is a lot of misconception, not only when it comes to breaking down polygyny, but also just a lot of topics in the scripture. So I am not rewriting the scripture. I'm simply breaking it down to the actual meanings between the Hebrew version and the Greek version of those words. So I'm going to start a series of these videos for one, because I've been asked to, and two, I believe that it's a burden, which I believe that it's a calling or an unction from the Most High for me to kind of lay this out in chops. And so I'm going to take it real slow and just break things down one by one. Last week, like I said, or recently, if I don't know how long this video stay up, so if you're watching it 2 months from now, then just know that there's another video that predates this one, and it breaks down biblical adultery. So in a nutshell, the synopsis of that video, or the summary of that video, basically just broke biblical adultery down as being defined as a woman who breaks wedlock, meaning if the woman is engaged and she sleeps with a man, that is adultery. That man is said to have committed adultery. And or if that woman is married, then it is adultery. But it is not adultery if the woman is a single woman, even if the man is married. That is biblical adultery. Okay, so if you didn't catch that video, like I said, you'll want to catch that video and understand that first aspect of it. But today we're going to break down a very simple but highly misinterpreted and highly misinterpreted scripture. And I'm gonna just basically read from a book that I've been studying from. It's called the Them and Him by Dr. Gina Murray, and she is breaking down biblical family structure. Okay, this is very good read. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on her website as an author. I would encourage you to go to her website and just support her website. It's madrinamedia.com, where you can order this online. I'll make sure to put in the comments where you can order this. If you are married, you need this book. Point blank, period. Like, ain't no and ifs or buts about it. If you are married and you want to understand the biblical structure of marriage, you need this book. If you are engaged or if you are wanting to be married, you need this book, because we have learned a lot that needs to be unlearned, and we need to get our foundations back in order. Okay, so I'm going to be reading from the appendix in this book, but it's not necessarily because what she says it. If you go and actually look for these words in the same sense, you're going to find the exact same thing if you're really genuine about studying this word, right? So she just breaks it down. I have another study from a guy that did a long drawn out 5-page study on all of the biblical definitions: adultery, fornication, etc., etc. And so this is not something that we're making up. This is literally the breakdown of these words. Okay, so 1 Corinthians 7:12, you see where it says, nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own. And that own, OWN, is, you can find it in the Strong's Concordance. It is the Strong's Concordance number G1438. G1438. That is a Greek word, and that's why you see the letter G there. Okay, most of the New Testament is broken down into Greek. Most of your Old Testament is broken down from Hebrew. So this is a Greek word, own. And then the scripture continues and it says, let every woman have her own, Strong's number G2398, husband. Those are two different Greek words. And by default, them being two different Greek words, then they mean two different things. One implies ownership and one implies being owned. Okay, so let's look at that. I'm going to read verbatim what she says in her narrative. She says, as you can see, Paul was careful to use different words in order to convey different meaning for the word own. Paul was very fluent in Greek, being a Hebrew and a Roman citizen whose home was Tarsus, a Greek city. Strong's number G1438 had two, refers to own as in belonging to his own self and not belonging to another as in his property. So if we want to reread that in the actual definition that it says, it should say, nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have or own his own property. If you understand biblical structure of marriage, women were considered to be the property of their husbands. So it is not necessarily saying that he has to have his own singular wife. It is just saying, it is referring to own as in belonging to his own self. Like, this is mine. So if you have cars, you own all of your cars. You can have 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 cars. They are all yours, right? This is property wise. So on the other hand, Strong's number G2398, idios refers to own as in private or set apart. In other words, she is not to be used by anyone else except her husband. So this means own as in being owned. Like, my husband owns me. I belong to my husband. I am set apart to my husband. So this is not a fair or true interpretation or biblical objection that you can stand on when it comes to the scripture saying every man should have his own wife and every woman should have their own husband, because it's not implying singularity there at all. what it's saying is that every man should have his property that he owns, and every woman should have or be set apart to her own husband. Those are not the same definitions there. I'll continue to read just a little more. But it says Paul knew the law and knew that Yeshua had no intention of destroying the standards of law, but Yeshua's intention was to fulfill the law. Yeshua fulfilled and completed the need for the sacrificial and sabbatical aspects of the Levitical law, but did not deny the moral and ethical standards of the Mosaic or natural law. In the same manner, Paul describes the law as a righteous schoolmaster by which we know sin. Paul would therefore write not any counsel in opposition to the commandments and prophecy of the Old Testament. So, breaking those words down, one implies ownership. Okay, one implies ownership, meaning just basically he needs to own his own property. He needs to have his wife or wives. One implies being owned. I need to belong to my own husband. And oftentimes, I've been questioned, well, can a woman have more than one husband? No, that is not biblical marriage. Biblical marriage is not a woman having more than one husband. Matter of fact, that is by definition of the scriptures, biblical adultery, because if you're married here, then you sleep with another man, that is considered adultery. Whereas if a man sleeps with another wife, another woman, he is to marry her. So, one sister said to me, I just can't believe that, the God that I love and serve would not give us the same playing field, or, would not view us as equal. And I hate to say it like this, but yeah, that is basically what it is. And he loves us as women, and I know a lot of women won't accept that, but he loves us as women enough to care for us to be covered under authority versus doing our own thing. And it also has a lot to do with the seed and all more stuff that I won't get into, but I really wanted to break down the scripture in reference to own and own. So once again, those Greek words, you have the Greek word G1438, which refers to own as belonging to himself. And then you have the Greek word 2398, which refers to being set apart to be owned. Okay. So for those of you that have stood on that scripture, I just invite you to go and look at it yourself. Like, I'm giving you the entire breakdown of it. And, it's not the definition is by default, just the definition is not manipulated in that sense, but you're more than welcome to go and see it for yourself. And I definitely would encourage you to do so, because one of the things that we have got to remove ourselves from is the religious teachings that we stand on that are not biblical. And a lot of pastors even are refusing to acknowledge the scriptures because they want to see it the way that they want to see it. And we will all be held accountable for misleading the flock in that sense. And so this is not anything to mislead or misguide, but to simply do what I believe that I have been called to do, and that's to teach. So that is the purpose of this video. So I just invite you to study the word for yourself, and in doing so, in having to unlearn and relearn what we've been taught, then we have to begin to embrace what the scriptures actually say. And I understand that is very offensive to our religious and westernized minds. But I say again, Yeshua, the Most High, never condemned polygyny in the scriptures, and it was never done away with. And therefore, it was never done away with by the Most High. Anyway, it was done away with by the Roman Catholics, but I'm not going into that right now. But, understanding that, then even if it's something that you're not interested in, as a teacher of the word and as, believers of the word, we must or we should have a desire to stand on the uncompromising word of Yahweh and not just want it to say what we want it to say. So, once again, this book, Biblical Family Structure, The Them and Him, I was actually blessed with this copy, and it has been very transformational in my life, in my husband's life, and my sister's life. And so I definitely want to share that with you guys to read that. There are only 4 chapters, but there are also some very important words that she breaks down that are, very essential to understanding the biblical structure for the family. So, with that being said, once again, you can follow me all channels at Zoe D Speaks. If you have questions, of course, feel free to drop them below. And I will also post the link to the previous video that I did on biblical adultery, just to make sure that you have a foundational beginning as I continue to do these videos. So, until next time, love you guys much. Peace and healing, and go be great.